right, YouTube, today was a good day. Returned back to school today. Got there about 9:30, right? And actually, what you saw earlier today, I filmed for about 20 minutes before I clocked in, actually. And it was one of those days that we returned back, and the kids were normal, right? It wasn't as bad as we thought it would be, right? They've been out for 2 weeks, and now they're off the chain, right, when they come back. But no, everything went smoothly. I had some holdovers. ISS is interesting, right, because it's just like any other sentencing, right? Once you get a verdict or you have a consequence, you still have to pay the consequence, right? So in the morning, I had very few. I had none, actually. I didn't have any students in until about noon, right? And that's when they had silent lunch. So apparently what had happened was before we got out for the Christmas break, these students were, running around the halls with their antics, got caught, and were assigned to silent lunch. Now that's upon our return. So what happened, I had about 5 or 6 students come in for silent lunch into ISS. And I sit them down and I ask them, okay, what is it? Why are we here again? All right. Or why are we here? A lot of the faces I recognized, but it was the last day of school pretty much, and they're running around with their antics. And so you still have to pay the consequences. So nonetheless, then we proceeded to go through that. They had their lunch, and we had a brief chat, conversation, because they're only there for the lunch period. It's a silent lunch. And so we're discussing, how the holiday went. And so I had a lot of students stopping by, right? And this is the interesting part about ISS. It is a punishment. Now, depending on the relationship you have with the students, they understand that you're there to do a job based on the fact that you could not maintain yourself properly in the classroom. And so, therefore, I'm not here to be your friend. I am here to be a sounding board. I'm here to protect you. I'm here to give you advice. I'm here to help you get back on track and motivate you. Whether you like me or not is not the issue. A lot of times they like certain people depending on what they can get away with, right? That's just the nature of kids, right? So if they can get away with certain things, they want to go here and they want to go there. They like this teacher, they don't like that teacher. And so I get a lot of that. And so when they come in, I'm always asking, why are you here? And the number one reason is what we'll cover, and I'll go into more detail as I showed you earlier this morning, was the fact that we have 26 student code of conducts, and I usually go through those pinpoint or point by point, giving them explanation and or reason. I also have attached in my presentation YouTube videos and or training to make those points clearer as to what they violated and how they shouldn't reoccur. Now, later on in the day, I did get a few more students in for various things, and of course, the number one, and I'll share this with you later, is your language, right? Using the proper language when addressing teachers, and or if they're telling you or giving you instruction, just comply, right? You don't have to open your mouth and respond and say anything slick, or if you do say something, depending on what you say and how you say it, the body language is going to determine whether or not the teacher or the principal, whoever, is going to write you up because you're being disrespectful or inappropriate language, right? And so it's never good to use profanity, right? Whether you're using it with a coworker, a student, whoever you're doing it to, it's just not appropriate in the workplace. It's not appropriate, period. Now, once upon a time, as I confess, of course, right? But somehow I was able to evade using it in the presence of adults, my parents, or in school in front of teachers, right? But now we've got some students now that are just rambling off certain words, like they're talking to their peers, or they'll come into ISS and say, oh, I wasn't talking to the teacher, I was talking to my homeboy or whoever, my friend, and that's the way we talk, all right? Well, that's inappropriate language, right? And so that's part of the code of conduct, right? And so these are the things that I'm trying to instill in them to get them to understand. You can't just do what you do everywhere. There's a time and place for everything. And you need to make proper decisions and or decorum when you're in certain events or certain areas. The dress code is always a big issue, with boys sagging pants, girls with certain things, exposed shorts, cutoffs, the principal goes over all this stuff and made it very clear. The first day, the first week of school, had them come in grade by grade level, explaining to them this is what's going to be. And if you are not complying, you're going to ISS, or you're going to be written up, or you're going to, parents are going to be calling. You have to bring in clothes and change. And if you don't want to change, you'll sit in ISS. All right. And so these are the type of things that we get involved in or bogged down in the school system. And the teachers are overwhelmed with these other extracurricular activities that students are carrying on in the classroom. And I have a video that I love to show to the students and say, do you recognize this? Have you been in this class and seen yourselves? And of course, we don't have any cameras in the classroom, but we are looking at the fact that, these things are going on, right? And now they see themselves from a bird's eye view, which in a lot of cases, I wish parents could actually see their students, because a lot of times they don't really believe that this is their child acting out, and they may be, not the same person at home that they are if you don't see them. So we ask parents a lot of times to be vigilant in the fact that, all right, students or children or kids will not always tell you the whole story. One of the things that was ironic, my mother never had to come to school. And had she had to come to school, I would have been in a whole lot. I would have been in a deep, deep, deep poo-poo, right? And so her question would have been, okay, before I go out here, you tell me what you did, right? Because what will happen is, oh, I didn't do anything. This is the normal response I get when they come in. Okay, why are you here? And I'm going to know why they're here because it'll be in the write-up, right? It'll be in the system, and I'll read what they said. Whether it's accurate or not, the student will always go, no, I didn't say that, and then blah, 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 blah. Yeah, right, yeah, you didn't say it, but that's what's being written. And this is why you need to understand what you say out of your mouth is critical in response to whatever the teacher or the principal or the substitute or the cafeteria staff or the janitorial staff is asking you to comply with. And I worked for the Ritz-Carlton a number of years ago. As long as they don't ask you to do anything immoral, unethical, or illegal, then you can comply. And so, you're not at the mercy of an adult that's telling you to do something inappropriate, right? If they're doing that, then you need to report that to administration and or to your parents, and you stay out of that situation. But anything else, basic instructions like sit down, be quiet, and then after a period of time, if you can't do that, they'll say, oh, the teacher's yelling at me. Well, let's look at it, guys. You've got 30 students in the classroom, 10, 15 students or more, all going off talking, and the teacher's trying to get your attention. At some point, they're going to have to elevate their voice, and then all of a sudden we get offended. You go from being, a child who wants to be an adult and wants to tell the teacher off to when the teacher says something or raises their voice, oh, they're yelling at me. And so I'm like, come on, guys, really? We're not going to do that, right? We're not going to play that game. We want to be a young man or a young lady, an adult, and then we want to talk like an adult. But then when you're corrected and or scolded about it, then you want to turn into a child, and you've been insulted and they're yelling at me, right? And so these are the things that we deal with. So on tomorrow, what will happen is it'll be the first week of our return, and after that first day delay or cancellation and the early 2-hour delay this morning, things should be back on course. Tomorrow's Wednesday and Thursday. And as I mentioned earlier, by Friday, there is going to be more inclement weather probably coming into the Triad area here in North Carolina. And so we'll see what happens with that, whether we'll be in school or not. But over the weekend, it's supposed to be some pretty, misty weather, right? And so we'll see how that goes. But nonetheless, today was a great day. It was great to be back, and believe it or not, a lot of the reward that teachers have actually, and or persons like myself, is that you're coming back off a break, and I was happy to see a lot of these kids, and a lot of them were in ISS, right? But I make them feel specifically comforted that I really do genuinely care about them, and what I'm trying to tell them is not to hurt them, is to motivate them and get them on the right track. And so I saw a lot of them, and I was very happy to see them. I was jubilant and asking them how was their holiday. Everything went well because before they left before we went out on break, I said, be very careful over the holidays. You know, things do happen, and that's over any break we have, right? And there's a lot of things that's going on in the community. Kids are losing their lives, different things. I had some personal incidents where a friend of our family has been injured in a car accident. It's just Monday, right? In South Florida, or I think he was traveling, whatever. But you know, you never know what's going to happen. And so to see these students back healthy was a joyful moment, because teachers and schools are devastated when we have tragedies. And you know how schools are unsafe now, as far as you know, people bringing objects to school, threats, all sorts of things. So it can be a very tense situation in schools these days. But as long as we have staff, I have a great administration, and I've been blessed to have a great administration in the schools that I've been in here in North Carolina. And so that goes a long way, because again, as I mentioned in some audio videos, if you're in a work environment where it's hostile and you have people who don't know how to communicate well, and they're in superior positions, I don't like the word boss, as I said, but you know, and they use their position or abuse their position and disrespectful, and vice versa. And this is what we're teaching these students, right? There's certain things that they're learning now that they have to have when they go into the workplace, because what's going to happen is the same rules that we have, attendance, you know, all these different things that we're doing, and we'll go in depth more. I'll give you a deeper dive into the code of conduct. Again, I showed you a brief overview of how the classroom's set up today, but this evening, getting home and settling in, I just wanted to give a wrap up on that first day and let you know how everything actually went during the class, during the day. Again, I didn't have many students in ISS today, other than the lunch crew that from their last events before we left for break. They couldn't seem to control themselves in the hallways, running up and down the hallways, and teachers caught them. And so it was about 5 or 6 of them. And then they were saying, oh yeah, somebody else is supposed to be in there. I said, look, what is the number one thing we do? We mind our own business, right? We'll take care of them when they get here, all right? So this is what how it goes down, right? And so this is the day in the life in the school. And you'll see some comedies about schools. There's one on one of the channels. I never really watched it, but they're showing, you know, what the teachers go through, and it's a comedy sitcom. I'll get the name of it. Yeah, school is interesting every day. My wife and I both work in the system now, and we come home and share stories about what went on that day, and it's actually rewarding. It is a rewarding feel. However, it's very stressful now for teachers and the schools, because you know, things are just not the way they used to be, and it's very hectic, right? And so there's a lot that has to be done, and we need these students in school doing their classwork, getting their education. Now, the state of North Carolina is doing a great job as far as financial literacy is now, like, I think 25 of the 50 states now have that as a requirement for seniors graduating, which is a very important curriculum, because back in the day, a lot of people said, oh, well, they should have taught us this in school. Nobody taught us about money in school, right? Now, I remember when I was in high school, we did have a business class, and, you know, how to write checks and things of that nature. But it's important that they do understand, because most adults don't. I mean, any of us can get in trouble financially at any moment, right? I've been there in the past, and, you know, it doesn't help, right? That's just an extra burden that is no fun, right? And so this is what we're doing, and I incorporate that because that's part of what I taught world history and personal finance in the high school level. And now that I'm doing ISS, I bring that work ethic and that information. When those students don't have assignments that from their classroom, or they have finished those assignments, I then provide for them and give them different assignments that they need to complete in ISS. Again, because we're not sitting there babysitting. They need to be constantly engaged in the educational process. And just because they're in ISS doesn't mean that they get to, you know, this is a break time, because they need to complete their assignments. Now, interesting, I had a student come in today, and the teacher said they weren't doing their work and sent them to ISS, and they're going to write them up. And so the teacher and I had a discussion, and if the kid actually doesn't want to finish the course, right? And so the 9 weeks is over in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? And so it, like a little out of January. So I gave the student that scenario. Look, you're going to be in ISS. ISS is not a camp out. So if you come to ISS for this core for that teacher, right, because it's boring or you don't want to do it anymore, then you're still going to have to do work. You're going to have to do work in here that you have to complete, right, by the end of that core period that I assign you. And if you don't complete it, you may have an additional ISS. And if you don't want to incorporate an ISS, then you will wind up where? You'll wind up probably in OSS. Now you just created a bigger problem. So I said, why don't you go home, tell your parents, talk to your parents before they get the notice from the principal or from the administration that you're going to be removed from that class for that block, and discuss that with them and figure out you only got a few more weeks. If you're not failing the class, go back, finish up, and then you'll be out of the class in another couple weeks. Otherwise, you may find yourself actually in ISS getting more time and missing an entire day for the rest of your classes for the next couple of days before the end of the semester, which you don't need because the teacher will be going over and reviewing probably these next couple of weeks if you're going to have a final exam and those type of things. And these are the type of things I try to talk to, and the teacher appreciated. He came back later and said, you know, what did you get anything resolved, or did you get any clarification on what his position is? And I said, yes. And we discussed that, and he said, yeah, I appreciate it, you know, because this gives him an opportunity to do what he needs to do, his due diligence, because he's instructing. He can't spend this time with a student just refusing to do or comply with the work. And that's the number one rule. You have to follow the directions of the, instruction. You have to follow the directions. And so being a disruption is not part of the equation, right? And so if you come to ISS and you're disrupting there, then your next step is OSS. So I gave him the options. This is where the critical thinking comes in that I'm trying to employ into the curriculum on a daily basis. So they understand that, look, you have to do what's expected. Everything's not going to be enjoyable. There are going to be things you have to do that are not, not exciting, right? It's boring, but you're not going to come in here. You're going to still have to do work. So you might as well finish that class out the next 3 days, because removing you out of class now is just simply going to be a failure, because you've only got three weeks left. That's going to be an F on your record. And, let's make it make sense. Make it make sense to me. So go home, figure out what's going on. Tell me, come back tomorrow, and hopefully we can resolve this. You can go back to class, finish up these 3 days, and you won't fail the class, hopefully, if you're not already failing, right? Because if you haven't been doing any work, you may already be failing. And so this is, what the teacher has to figure out, whether or not this kid is already failing, and whether it's a moot position at this point. But nonetheless, this is the extra mile that I go in order to try to get these kids back on track. So parents, look, it's important, imperative upon you to actually understand what's going on in the school system and how much teachers are trying to do their best to educate your children and need your help. You have to be involved. Now, I must say this. Every time there's an event at the school, the parents come out in droves. The opening night, there were parents and students all over the campus. I'd never really seen that before. The amount of attention that these parents are coming out and actually participating and seeing what's going on is amazing, and it's a blessing to the whole administration and to the school. Because if you don't have the parents involved and they're not participating and they don't know what's going on, then you got a serious disconnect. And so this is why, even though they are coming out, we do have students who are winding up in ISS repeatedly for disrespect, for different things, the gamut, and you'll see it. Now, one of the other things that I want to address before I go is, because we had inclement weather for the last couple days, we have students that they have been on the bus and they've been disruptive. And I've explained to students, look, when you're on the bus driver is trying to drive, and here we've got curves and the shoulders will run you down in a ravine. And if we had black ice, and we're talking about on clear good days, let alone on wintry days, right? You're fighting on the bus, you're arguing on the bus, you're playing on the bus, right? You distract the bus driver for a split second, and all of a sudden, now everybody's life's in danger. So these are the things we're trying to impart to them. These rules that we have are not here just because we got nothing else to do or the state has nothing else to do. These rules are there because things have happened. And so also fighting. Fighting is a direct OSS. You're out. You may stop through ISS for a day, depending on whether your parents can pick you up or not. But they're not playing with you as far as physical aggression and fighting on campus. Those students may come through and see me for maybe a day or half a day or an hour or so until a parent can pick them up. But they're out. They're out of the system. They're home for 10, 20 days, 5 or 10 days, my apology. And that's just the way it is. And so between the bus misbehavior and fights are pretty much not coming into ISS directly. They are suspended from using the transportation system because they can't conduct themselves. And there's usually 3 or 4 students at a time on that list, as well as the fight list. So a lot of these things we're going to have to control because you just can't. It's not productive to the educational environment, and it's not productive. So with that being said, this was just the first day wrap up. I just want to touch base with you all and let you know, look, this is what it is, right? And so this is the value that YouTube brings, right? It gives me an opportunity or anybody else to add some value to your life. Hopefully this is beneficial. I just need parents to check up, make sure that they're aware of what's going on, and get with the teachers. Talk to the teachers and talk to your children mostly, right? Whatever, when that letter comes home that you have to sign and return, make sure you read it. And of course, like I hear from the students, I didn't do nothing. And it's the teacher, it's this, it's that. And of course, everybody has a bad day, right? And it could be whatever. And I tell all the students, I wasn't there, so I don't know. I'm not taking your side. I've been in the classroom, so I understand what does go on. And as we go through our reset here of consequences to get you back on path, it's important that you're responsible for your education. And so that being said, you all have a good night, and I'll see you in the morning.